Godzilla has always been allegorical. Despite how Godzilla is a giant city-destroying lizard that grew big and strong even though he didn't eat his vegetables, legend, Godzilla as a kaiju monster in Toho's long-running series of films both reflected Japan's nationwide trauma spawned from America dropping atomic bombs on two populous cities and thus murdering thousands upon thousands of people, as well as, according to my research, acts as a stand-in for America itself. Hence why in some of the later movies, Godzilla is more friendly to the Japanese, even acting as a guardian and protector to the nation, because this kaiju can be a good Gojira, no relation. However, the somewhat recently released and very good Godzilla Minus One is a reimagining of the earlier style of Godzilla, the one where Godzilla would not be invited for coffee and donuts after the book club, a true betrayal. In fact, the version of Godzilla within director Takashi Yamazaki's Godzilla Minus One is an uncompromising kaiju monster that harkens back to the original Godzilla. After all, this most recent Godzilla venture is set just after the end of World War II and thus covers dark and bleak subject matter about a monster that can level Japanese cities just like how America could with weapons of mass destruction. Because truly, Godzilla Minus One is not a fun time. If anything, rather than happy-go-lucky, this film is happy-go me. It strikes a serious tone, just like what I've read about the original Godzilla film. But with that said, Godzilla Minus One is about more than just an allegory surrounding the genocide caused by America dropping two atomic bombs on Japan. If anything, the kaiju monster within Godzilla Minus One represents the trauma of war, and more specifically, the trauma that the Japanese felt at the end of World War II, which does admittedly include the human devastation wreaked by the atomic bombs dropping, because in no uncertain terms, that shit was a genocide. But Godzilla Minus One is also about Japanese life after the country's defeat in the Second World War. If anything, many characters in this film are ex-military folks who are grappling with their country's loss in World War II, as well as the fact that some of the characters in this movie are haunted by either their real or perceived failures during the war. This includes our main character Koichi Shikishima, a kamikaze pilot. For those of you who need a reminder, kamikaze pilots were assigned a suicide mission during World War II where they essentially forfeit their lives by crashing their planes into enemy vehicles, artillery weapons, and such. Not really an optimal situation for any of those pilots that actually wanted to live. Yet at the beginning of Godzilla Minus One, Koichi leaves his post under the excuse that his plane is malfunctioning, even though it was actually fine. In other words, this kamikaze pilot was ducking his duty. So under this false guise, he lands at an airbase for repairs and stays the night. Over the course of that said night, a younger and smaller Godzilla attacks, though this Godzilla is plenty big, it's pretty much the size of two Victorian houses, and massacres most of the camp. Making matters worse, Koichi could have potentially stopped this giant lizard's rampage, mostly due to how he was positioned to fire his plane's gun right at Godzilla's face. And no, that is not a euphemism for Yet Koichi froze, and from that moment on, Koichi feels both a sense of trauma and guilt. He has a certain shame attached to the whole event. Sometime after the war is over, Koichi is just trying to live his life the best that he can. He finds a woman he really likes, adopts a war orphan, and joins a high-paying expedition that was supposed to revolve around destroying mines that were installed in the ocean during the war. However, this job description was a lie. In actuality, the expedition he was on was a mission to research and potentially kill Godzilla, a now bigger and stronger Godzilla that clearly eats a balanced breakfast. Bringing everything full circle as Koichi must reckon with his past traumatic events. Koichi's plight makes for an engrossing cinematic experience. In fact, through Koichi, Godzilla Minus One is a gripping movie on an emotional level. While yes, the film is engaging on a visceral level, which is a given considering the movie features a giant kaiju critter destroying metropolitan areas with very impressive special effects, Koichi's narrative in Godzilla Minus One hits the audience in the emotional cortex, mostly because the movie tethers its kaiju action with the narrative's emotional stakes, i.e. Koichi's sense of guilt and shame and trauma since the end of the war. After all, Godzilla represents Koichi's personal failure to do his duty during the war, as well as a painful core event of his life, one that unfortunately defines him at the moment. And if anything, Godzilla's return bleeds into Koichi's personal life. The situation causes Koichi to put stress on his loved ones as he tries to grapple with complicated emotions about his own personal value, making his relationship with his family a tough one, because as stated in the movie, for Koichi, the war never ended, and that refers to Koichi's lingering PTSD and sense of shame at the end of World War II, and for the fact that he has no closure for his traumatic events, given that the only way to deliver him that said closure would be for him to defeat the literal giant lizard monster who continuously torments him, just like at that airbase towards the end of the war. Because to be clear, Godzilla is a manifestation of Koichi's trauma and PTSD, something that is literally haunting him. If anything, Godzilla is out to ruin his life. Godzilla is just a reminder of Koichi's biggest failure. Ultimately, Godzilla Minus One is a terrific cinematic experience. The film features intense action and captivating storytelling in equal measure, ensuring that it belongs among the great kaiju movies. And while this is admittedly my first experience with a Toho Godzilla movie, and what a really great first experience that was, I can honestly say that Godzilla Minus One lives up to the Godzilla franchise's legacy, because honestly, Godzilla Minus One's titular critter is more than just a special effect here, because in this film, Godzilla really means something.